So 10 Cloverfield Lane is one of my favourite movies of the past year, and for good reason. The tension and ambiguity of the movie is fantastic, and the performances from Mary Elizabeth Winstead and John Goodman is really good. John Goodman is a scary motherfucker when he wants to be. Like, I was like, he's fine, he's a funny dude, he's a comic actor. And then you watch this, you're like, Jesus Christ, John Goodman, what the fuck happened? However, despite how much I love this movie, there is one thing I do not like, and I want to talk about the one thing I don't like, because I'm a cynical prick, and if I was positive the entire time, then where would we be? The thing I dislike about this movie is the ending. And it's not just the ending, it's the very end of the movie, like the last minute, give or take. In order to discuss the ending properly, I have to kind of go into the story a little bit. So, in saying that, the story follows Michelle, aka Mary Elizabeth Winstead, as she leaves her husband, I'm not sure, boyfriend's home, and on her way out, flips her car and generally gets into a shitstorm. And from one shitstorm to another, she's saved by John Goodman, who pulls her out of the car and brings her to his house. Upon her waking up, she is generally scared, as she's completely in her right to. She's in a damp, cold basement chained to a wall, like she's staring at this ugly mug. Like, wouldn't you be scared? I'd fucking piss myself if I woke up to that. Seriously, John Goodman, take a shower or something. Which, as a side note, this is one of my favorite things of the movie. Michelle as a character is actually really smart, and she's actually kind of realistic to how a person would react to the situation. Every single time I saw a situation and I was like, she should do this, she did that. There were certain occasions where I didn't even notice something and she did it. Like at one point she fashions a Molotov cocktail, like out of nowhere almost. It's really refreshing to see a character who isn't a fucking moron in a horror movie. Like if there's someone screaming a blood-curdling howl behind a door and there's smoke coming out and there's some demonic baby running around, you don't run towards the fucking door, you dipshits. Anyway, John Goodman, aka Howard, as a character, is the reason this movie is ambiguous. He's basically the source of the ambiguity of this movie. Apparently outside of this shack, there's an alien invasion, and apparently the area is completely uninhabitable. So a majority of the movie is about the rising tension as Michelle and another character named Emmett are stuck between an alien rock and a crazy place. The crazy place being Howard as a whole. Now, as the movie progresses, Howard gets more and more uncomfortable to watch. He gets more and more crazy. It gets more and more uncomfortable watching as this man strives for control all of the time and goes to kind of extreme lengths to do so. This kind of comes to a hoe when Michelle basically had enough, and what she does is she tries to escape, and in trying to escape, a woman is dying at the door with her face melted, asking to be let in. This is where the ambiguity of the movie is kind of shown, because you don't know if the woman was killed by John Goodman or if the woman was killed by aliens. See, you actually don't know for a fact if the aliens are actually real. You don't know. The only sources are two other characters. The protagonist you're following has no idea. The only person who seems very vigilant on it is John Goodman's character. And the thing is, you can't really trust the word of a crazy person, which is where the ambiguity of this movie comes from, because you don't know if the aliens are actually outside or not, and you don't know the situation with the aliens if they are real, and you don't know if they're actually killing everybody. So in saying that, most of the ambiguity of this movie comes from knowing if the aliens are actually outside the place or not, searching for humans to kill. Now in the end of the movie, John Goodman's character goes completely off his rocker and shoots Emmett, i.e. the other main character in the story. I skipped some details, but that's kind of the main synopsis, and then it gets on to the ending, where the ending sequence is so good in terms of, in the bit where Michelle is trying to get away from Howard and Howard is just chasing her with fucking acid on his face, and it's genuinely scary. I was actually scared during that, and it's really tense. You don't know where he is, and there's never music whenever he's not on the screen, so you're like, is he coming? Is he coming? Because like there's a bit where she's in a ventilation system and a knife just appears through the fucking side of the thing. It's scary. It's genuinely scary to watch. Even though he's proven to be completely batshit insane, a complete resident of Crazy Town, you still don't know if the aliens are real or not. In fact, you're kind of more inclined to say that they're not, because the only real source she has is a complete fucking psychopath. So when she finally escapes with a suit she created herself, she realizes that the air is completely inhabitable, which means that was one of the two things he seemed to be talking about, i.e. that you can't breathe in the air or you'll die, and the aliens are around killing people pretty much in a genocidal way. This, I think, is where the movie should have stopped. This is the best way to end an ambiguous movie like this, because even if there's signs pointing towards either way, it's good to give an ambiguous ending because it gives some interaction for the audience. What happens, unfortunately, is it keeps going, and you realize that the aliens are real, that they're going to kill her, and that she escapes to go off and help some other people who are also trying to fight a resistance against the aliens. This, in my opinion, was a unideal way of doing it. The way you built this, which was, in my opinion, very, very well, was in an ambiguous setting. You made it very, very unsure whether or not the alien was going to be there or not, and if when it came out, if she was going to be killed by the aliens or just by the air she was breathing. And since one of them wasn't true, it could be very likely the other one wasn't true. And the thing is, if you saw the light come from behind the barn, it could be a helicopter, it could be a plane, it could be anything. So that's why if you left it at that moment, it still leaves the ambiguity just to the last second. Doesn't matter if signs point a single way, an ambiguous ending still adds potency to an ending. And furthermore, I never thought the threat or the focus of the movie were the aliens, so it didn't actually matter if we saw them or not. What the real focus was Howard, and now that he's gone, it was like, oh, he's gone, here's a new threat, slightly larger because he's an alien, that's why it's scarier, which kind of throws away the tension that was built with Howard earlier in the movie. Now, I personally believe it should have ended that way, but it is completely within your right to believe the ending was completely legitimate, or if you want to end it a different way, then that's fine too. There is one guy on an article that I read where he believes that the entire movie is an allegory for domestic abuse, and that escaping to the aliens kind of represents the struggle a lot of abuse victims go through after they get away from the people who are abusing them. It's an interesting interpretation, but personally I believe that the reason they did it the way they did is because they wanted to open up for another sequel if they want to do one, which, to be fair, is both a good and a bad thing, because if they only did that ending because they wanted a sequel, then it seems kind of cheap. But as well as that, I would love to see a sequel of this movie. I would love to see that. Anyway, tell me if you think it should have ended in the comments, and I'm sorry if you didn't watch the movie and you watched this, because I did spoil some pretty focal points in the movie, but even aside from that, it's still a good experience to watch the movie, even if you know the ending, because the movie has great performances from Mary Elizabeth Winstead, John Goodman, and even John Gallagher Jr., the third guy, the guy I didn't really mention that much. And as well as that, the script's fantastic, the pacing's amazing, the cinematography's pretty good, and surprisingly enough, they did all of this on an extremely low budget, which actually is the part that most impresses me. I mean, to be honest, the ending doesn't really take away from the movie that much. It could be considered more of an experience type movie than an actual payoff movie, but in saying that, tell me what you think about it in the comments, and tell me if you wanted to change the ending or keep it the same. Anyway, until next time.